Use that common sense and communication BMP to your advantage. Think about the timing of things, integrate your construction activities so that erosion and sediment control so they don't conflict with each other. You don't want to have the focuses so disconnected that you're spraying a slope with hydromulch and then the superintendent or manager of the project says, how do we get into that tomorrow? And you just sprayed the whole thing and we've actually got to use it tomorrow. So you have to think about what BMPs go in and when for your site to become effective moving forward through the start of construction to the finish of the project. Dust control and sweeping are activities that you're going to have to consider. One of the real challenges about construction activities and maintenance activity is that nobody needs to take this class to be able to determine whether or not we're performing well. We are either sending smoke signals up in the air or we're running chocolate milk out into the street from dirty water discharges, and both of these things are very visible, and you don't need to take a class to understand whether or not somebody is managing the project well. So dust control and having sweeping vendors out on your piece of property is really important, making sure that we're not sending messages to everybody that we don't know how to control erosion or manage stormwater. Stockpiles and slopes are major focuses as well. Not just the big stockpiles, but we're talking small stockpiles as well. So stockpiles create risk because of the slope oftentimes is left exposed, but I also want to talk about stockpile placement. Putting stockpiles right against the curb line where water can oftentimes flow into the gutter or uphill of a catch basin, which can introduce sediment to the system. You're going to need to make sure that you're covering it at the end of every day and over the weekend when not in use. And finally, the last piece that I want you to consider about stockpiles is oftentimes materials that we're stockpiling have value for construction purposes. We may have scraped off the top layer of soil that we can reuse as topsoil, or have imported material like minus-related gravel that we're going to use to backfill our subgrade infrastructure. And if you leave those stockpiles exposed to precipitation, the precipitation can actually wash the valuable material out of the stockpile. So not only have you made turbid discharge coming off the stockpile, but you're losing the value of the material as it's exposed to precipitation, and the fines are washing out of your minus-related gravel, and now you don't have the structural compaction capability of that gravel when you backfill your subgrade structures. We also need to manage other sources of pollutant that we're going to bring onto our project. Things like gas, like paint, like oils. We're going to have to make sure that those materials we bring on site are not exposed to vandalism, that they're in secondary containment and when they're not in use, and that the containment is not filling up with rainwater. The rule of thumb for secondary containment is undercover in a secure location at the end of every day. We also really need to consider our process water management system. Process water generated from concrete washouts, saw cutting, pressure washer, or wheel washes are all process water. That is not stormwater and cannot be commingled. It must be contained and confined and removed from the piece of property or go through some type of infiltration system on that piece of property that won't pose risk to groundwater or stormwater moving forward. To help manage that, you may have to have a dewatering plan put in place or some type of management system, especially for concrete washouts. Again, this is one of those areas where you have a highly visible source. It's easy to identify concrete pollution, and for many of you, you probably have had to chip out a false sump where people have washed off their exposed aggregate into a city basin, and now it's caked up, and the sump isn't 3 feet anymore, it's 2 feet deep because the top foot of it is caked up concrete at the surface. Your concrete management systems have to be identified on the site for the concrete truck to know where to go to wash out on the project, and given in a designated area to manage that. That processed water cannot commingle with stormwater, not only because of the turbidity value, but also because of the pH. pH is one of those non-visible pollutants and is instantaneously detrimental to biology if introduced at high levels. So pH of concrete washout is just below a pH of 12. pH of 12 material is considered dangerous waste. If you put your hand in it, it'll take the skin off your hands. So it's really important to have a management system put in place for that, and we're not just letting that material run through our storm system.